Hello my YouTube friends, it's me, your old buddy Magnum over here at Magnum Videos. I wanted to do a follow-up video on the one I did the other day where I mentioned the record sales in record numbers in gun sales recently. And in this video I want to talk about gun safety. Now I know that there are other videos out there that discuss the 4 rules of gun safety. I know that most of the people that watch my videos are very familiar with these 4 rules, but since there are so many new gun owners out there, I thought this video would be timely and perhaps provide some information that they might find of value. Now, a lot of times the people that are buying these guns are first-time gun owners. They've never shot a gun, they've never held a gun, and they go into a gun store and they buy a gun, they take it home, and then they don't know what to do. They're afraid of it. They don't know, is this gun going to go off? Well, I'll tell you from my experience, I've got guns that have been sitting in my closet for 20 years, and they haven't gone off by themselves so far. So the likelihood of it going off by itself is very slim. Probably almost an impossibility. So we're going to talk about the 4 rules of gun safety so that you can become familiar with what's the right procedure and what is a dangerous procedure. Rule number 1, the gun is always loaded. Okay? We're going to use the Beretta PX4 for this presentation. Now, when I pick this gun up, I'm assuming that this gun is loaded. And when I look at it, I can see that there is a magazine in it, and the magazine does have rounds in it. So, I have removed the magazine. I have checked the chamber, and there's nothing in the chamber. So this gun, I have made sure that this gun is not loaded. However, you always want to treat a gun as if it were loaded. So rule number 1, the gun is always loaded. If you look at this gun, what do you assume? The gun is loaded. Okay, now I have made sure that it is not loaded, but we're going to treat it as if it were loaded for the rest of this presentation. Rule number 2, never let the muzzle cross anything that you're not willing to destroy. In other words, when you go into a gun store, if you're buying your first gun, and you go in there and you show the guy which gun you want to look at, and he brings it out of the case and puts it up on the counter, and you pick it up, don't pick it up and go like this and sweep everybody in the store with it. You keep the gun in a position where the muzzle is not going across anything that you don't wish to destroy. Okay? That way, if the gun should be loaded and you hadn't checked it, and if you violate rule number 2 and rule number 3, which we'll get to in a moment, you could have an unintentional discharge and end up shooting someone. So keep the gun always in a safe position. Okay? Rule number 3. And this is the golden rule of gun safety. Keep your finger off the trigger until you have your targets in your sight. If I have this gun loaded, I have a magazine in it, I have a round in the chamber, I have the hammer pulled back, I have the safety off, this gun is not going to go off unless I put my finger inside the trigger well or trigger guard and pull the trigger. That's the only way this gun is going to fire. So keep your finger off the trigger until the target's in your sight. Rule number 4. Never fire at anything that you have not positively identified and you are aware of what's behind it. Let me explain that just a little bit. Don't fire at anything until you have positively identified it. Okay? If you hear something behind you while you're out walking in the woods, don't turn around and fire. Because it could be a park ranger, it could be your neighbor, it could be something that you don't want to shoot. So never fire until you have positively identified your target and what's behind it. If you are in a situation where an attacker is coming toward you and you draw your weapon and you have the target, you look at the target, you have it in your sights, your fingers on the trigger, and there are innocent bystanders behind this attacker, you being, excited, your aim may not be that good and you might miss the attacker and hit one of those innocent bystanders. So be aware of what's behind your target. Okay? So that concludes the 4 rules. Let me go over them one more time just to drill them into your head because they're very important. Number 1, the gun is always loaded. Even when the gun is not loaded, you treat it as if it were loaded. Okay? Rule number 2, never let the muzzle sweep anything that you're not willing to destroy. And for those of you who say that, well, the gun wasn't loaded, I refer you back to rule number 1. Rule number 3, this is the golden rule, keep your finger off the trigger until the target is in your sights. And rule number 4, never fire until you have identified your target positively and are aware of what's behind it. So, there you have it. Embed those in your head, remember them always. And until I speak with you again, and even after that, you stay focused.